Good morning. I again want to thank everybody for the amazing response to the video I made about Kendrick Lamar and the Super Bowl. I guess this is the extension of a thought or a series, whatever you want to call it. These white folks are showing their color. Not all white folks, believe me. You need to understand there's a lot of white folks very ticked off about everything that happens. The latest one is MSNBC canceling basically all of their anchors of color. Joy Reid, Lester Holt, to name the couple that popped to the top of my head. I really liked Joy Reid's commentary. It used to give me hope that MSNBC was perhaps better than the rest of its corporate network types, but it wasn't. I know I'm a little tongue-tied because, of course, what I'd really like to do is just break out screaming. So let me give you a little background on me personally. I don't talk like back home anymore, but if most of my relatives and the people I grew up around, they all talk like this, because most of them were either Georgia or Alabama, and they all had a really thick country southern accent, and that's the people I grew up with. And in spite of all the stereotypes, I do need to tell you, most of them were people of very high integrity, because they just had a very rigid way of walking the straight and narrow. And yes, some of them were racist jerks, but most people just didn't care. They were too busy trying to keep their own heads above water to think about drowning anybody else. But part of the landscape of that in Florida was every year we'd get a new crop of Yankees telling us how backward we were, and how they never wanted to shovel snow again, and on and on. But the other thing, of course, was how racist we all were. We were just horribly racist people. I still, at my age, if I had $1 for every time I heard some non-Southerner say, "I'm not racist, I'm not from the South," I could have retired years ago. So, white folks, to my fellow white people, everybody in this country is racist, no matter what color you are. We white folks are, because of all the Eurocentrism that got shoved into us. And being white didn't even exist until our ancestors landed here. You got to remember, the Europeans were all busy killing each other for centuries. So all of that divisiveness and the fear that drove it, when they got here, they were all able to sort of congeal together under this identity of, well, we're white, because there were other people here to be afraid of and to hate. It's our problem. And I'm so sick of white people not owning it and then wondering why nothing changes. You know, a long time ago, liberal white folks, especially here in California, every now and then when there would be a racial event, they would organize some program after church or civic or whatever, and they'd get a bunch of people of color together to talk about all the discriminatory experiences of their life. And all the white liberals could sit there and breastbeat, and think, well, I'm not one of those horrible people, blah, 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 which is just further divisive, and feel better. And I remember almost 15 years ago going to one of those, and it just hit me. This isn't doing anything, because it's not talking about us, it's talking about them. And them already got enough stuff, them being people of color. They got enough stuff to deal with without coming to these events, so they can put a little bit of ointment on the ignorance that white people have about our own history. Most white people don't even realize all the things people of color say when we're not around. There's a great line from Zora Neale Hurston's book, Their Eyes Were Watching God, at the opening, and she talks about the black community in Eatonville in the 1920s, and she said, these skins had been eyeless, earless conveniences by day. Mules and brutes occupied their skins. But now the sun and the boss man were gone. And that's the thing. Most white people have no clue, absolutely no clue, the conversations that go on with people of color when none of us are around. And it would really behoove you, it would help you to start even considering the possibility of that. I said in the Kendrick Lamar video, if you're one of those folks that says, oh, well, I had black friends in college, blah, 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 blah. It's like, no. If you have a friend of color who doesn't talk to you about their experiences of white people, and I don't mean just specific incidents, I mean our unconscious arrogance and attitude that we're superior, that we know more. I mean, women get this from men all the time. That's a whole other conversation. But we just do this. We don't even realize we're doing it. And one of the reasons I can empathize is because as a faggot, I get dismissed all the time. Who does he think he is? He doesn't know anything about this stuff. Blah, 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 blah. I get sick of it. So anyway, we white people in this country have a lot to work on. And by the way, one of the best things about President Trump is the arrogance of it all is right out there in the front. Right out there. No apologies. Just, you're darker than us. We don't care. But also, the policies they're stripping away are going to affect more white people than people of color, especially in the poorer red states like Alabama and Tennessee that receive most of their health care and education money from the federal government, which Trump is now going to basically gut. And then there won't be public schools. There'll be private charter schools, and they may give you a voucher to pay for it, but it's not going to be the same thing. Not going to be the same thing, but that's a whole other conversation. Fortunately, some of the courts are stopping a lot of this stuff before it can actually be implemented. But look at the spirit of it. Oh, and by the way, they're going to play it's the Democrats' fault blame game till hell freezes over. But this new budget was completely completely created by and voted upon by the Republicans in the Congress by a 3-vote majority. And by this time next year, we're all going to be feeling the effects of it. Grocery prices are going to go through the roof. Well, maybe not through the roof, but you know what they're doing with it. You're seeing what's happening with eggs right now. Well, that's going to happen with a lot of food because the people who plant it, grow it, harvest it, and process it are all too afraid to go to work because that's where ICE comes in and deports whole busloads of people. Anyway, I got to tell you, it's an embarrassing time to be white these days, especially with this face. And, but it's okay. It's just one more thing to deal with. I hope y'all have a wonderful day. Come back.